Hey guys, so just about time. Hope you're all comfortable and well. So this is Jed, by the way. So okay, time to begin. We're just right on time. Okay, so before we formally begin, let's just go over quick house rules for the webinar. Pretty much standard. First and foremost, this is recorded, and the recording will be shared. We'll be posting this on our YouTube channel. You'll be receiving the links maybe in 24 to 48 hours after the webinar, of course, along with the presentation and the necessary links. Next up, of course, yeah, I mentioned PowerPoint and recording will be shared. Secondly, as per standard webinar, you will be muted all throughout. However, if you have questions, you should be able to see a questions panel at your GoToWebinar. Just feel free to type your question there and I will be responding to them. For the sake of a more solid approach to the discussion, I'll go through the entire discussion first, but I will definitely be leaving the latter parts of this session just for Q&A. So, but all throughout, just feel free to type in your question whenever, but I'll be responding to all of those in bulk at the end of the session. Secondly, there are no silly questions. I know sometimes you feel hesitant because it might be a silly question. Don't worry. This is a safe place, and I totally understand. There are no such thing as silly questions. Just feel free to ask away. This is meant for you to learn. So yeah, just if you're curious about something, just type that question in. Secondly, and lastly, you are just as good as me. Always remember that. So if you feel like you have something helpful that you'd like to share with the group, please feel free to share that by typing it as well to your chat panel, and I would be more than happy to share that with the group. Okay, so those are basically about all the house rules that we need. Now let's formally begin. Hang on. All right, first things first. So welcome to the Introduction to Newsletters webinar. I'm your host, and I'll also be your trainer for today. I'm Jed. A bit of a background about me. I am currently handling the operations and marketing of TechSoup Asia Pacific across 10 countries. Part of that is also handling the newsletters. I've been handling the newsletters ever since my first year. A quick background, I have no experience, no prior experience in handling newsletters, but I have learned through the job, and that also shows you how easy it is to actually pick up. So for those of you who are about to begin their newsletter initiatives today, don't worry, it is extremely easy, right? So moving forward, let's begin. So first and foremost, let's answer why newsletters, right? What is the importance of these newsletters? Mainly, this reminds our networks that we basically exist. Now, as nonprofits, I know we don't normally communicate. So mainly our communication channels are more often than not kind of, how do you call this, occasional, right? So if there's, more often than not, we just communicate with our networks of funders or volunteers when there's an event, when there's a new program coming out, or if we're running a fundraiser. That's good and all, but also it's good to actually keep these communication channels open so that there's the form of support. These don't flow in occasional as well. So we're going to get, we need to open these communication lines as constant as possible so we get support as constant as possible as well. Plus, it's always good to share the stories and also share how your funders and how your volunteers have helped your organization. That's always a good thing to do. Okay, moving forward, so how do we usually do this? A big question is, newsletters are good, doing these campaigns are good, but how do we normally do this, right? So there are a variety of ways that traditionally and historically nonprofits have done this. For us, and for some of you already, you're using a third-party service such as Mailchimp, which is the tool that we'll be discussing in a bit. So aside from Mailchimp, there are other tools as well, including Wix, if you're familiar with Wix. And I have heard some before use something like SendBlaster. That's also one thing that they use. But other than the third-party service, the more common one is usually using a direct group email, or if you want to put a personal touch to it, it's via Mailmerge. Now, these are good, but moving forward in a bit, you'll see that this has limitations as well. Now, building on this direct email, some would usually also add a PDF attachment, which serves as your kind of like a big overview of what you've done. So this is particularly common, as I've experienced, if you're doing annual reviews, or basically your year in reviews, or quarters in reviews. So this is normally done in that fashion. But then again, as we move forward, you'll see that these two, though they're very convenient and they're very useful, they have their own limitations as well, compared to using a third-party service. Okay? So let's find out what those limitations are and what are the vital features that you should take note of when trying to decide which tool is appropriate for you. First and foremost, this tool that you should look into should provide you with presets. Now, why am I talking about presets? I'm talking about presets, number one, because I know not a lot of nonprofits have the necessary hardware or software that could run these, that could help you design something such as a PDF. Also, the necessary need for a professional that is able to do this. So by having by having a tool that can provide you with presets, this basically this process of creating regular campaigns becomes more efficient, and most especially becomes a lot more sustainable, as opposed to drafting a PDF every year or every quarter. That can take a while, to be honest. So with presets, this becomes more sustainable. Secondly, it should have reflexive templates. Building on the templates, it should be reflexive as well. If you take note of how we use technology nowadays, we're no longer just stuck with using our desktop or laptops. In fact, a lot of people are now opening emails in a variety of ways, sometimes through your tablet, sometimes through your mobile. And while emails can be a lot more flexible, PDFs aren't, to be honest. So that can create some issues when viewing these attachments, and also, again, it creates difficulties in actually going through the entire content, so it might become a waste in this case. So one thing you should always look for is something that can provide you with presets, and whose presets are also reflexive as well. So, okay. Third, it should be able to track the performance. So the primary currency for performance here are clicks and opens. Opens is basically the number of people that you've sent to that have proceeded to open your email. And secondly is clicks. Clicks are if you have embedded clicks in this campaign, the clicks is the number of people who've actually clicked through. These are important, most especially if you're creating, or if you're trying to understand who among your networks, most especially if you're dealing with a network of funders or supporters. This is particularly important because this gives you an idea on who's more active, gives you an idea on who's more responsive and willing. So that kind of like helps you in creating a short list of of the number of people who I could reach out to initially to build discussions with. So that's another vital thing that you would always need. And this is something that's particularly missing in both direct mail merge and also a PDF. Normally you can't track the links if there are links there. And you can't track how many people have actually opened this. Now, another important thing to note here is that the reason why this is particularly important is to avoid spamming people. Say, for example, if you're usually sending out direct emails maybe as a reminder for an upcoming event, you wouldn't be able to know who among these aren't interested or have already opened but are not interested because they haven't responded. So again, insights can give you that. Analytics can give you that. So it's always important to find a tool that can help you track your performance. And last but not the least, as a bonus, this should be, well, not particularly required, but as a bonus, it should be able to provide you with some contact management features, which we'll be tackling in a bit. Okay? Okay, so moving forward, let's now go on to the main event. So what are we using? So this is particularly Mailchimp, as shown by this little cute chimp right here. So Mailchimp it's basically free and cloud-based. So if you were used to creating PDFs before, this essentially eliminates the need for complicated or sophisticated hardware specs or for sophisticated software. Secondly, it has a library of free and reflexive templates So that essentially removes the need for redesigning every time you need to create a campaign. So it's just a matter of point and click and update content. It's as quick as that. Now, if you want to customize it a bit, Mailchimp runs on an easy drag and drop interface. Again, removes the need for, being able to code, removes the need for any designing training prior. So if you're familiar with tools such as Canva, that is actually the counterpart of Mailchimp if it's a newsletter. Basically, if you want to add an article at some point, you just drag a placeholder, put it in your put it in your template, and just update the content. You will later see how easy it is. Next, it has a built-in insight tracking. So again, as I've indicated earlier, this is particularly important for tracking the success of your campaign. Seeing how many people. So through Mailchimp, you can actually track whom among your networks have opened it, whom among your networks have clicked through, whom among your networks have unsubscribed, and most especially, it also automatically manages your contact list. So if people have, so if so take for example, if a campaign is bounced a little too much, Mailchimp will automatically remove that contact, just to help you, keep your analytics very intact and very accurate. And last but not the least, yes, it has contact management. So you can, in Mailchimp, you just need to basically upload your list of contacts, be it in a CSV or an Excel file, and it will help you do the rest. So you'll see later how important that is, all right? Okay, so moving forward, we're now moving towards the demo part, okay? So what can you expect through this demo? So number one, you'll learn how to design campaigns and templates. Number two, I'll teach you how to track newsletter performances, the basics of it. And lastly, how to manage your contact list. So that is particularly important as we move forward and as you move forward as well. A quick note, this is all about Mailchimp, but I'm not requiring you to use Mailchimp if you already have an existing solution. This is basically this part is primarily for organizations that haven't ventured into or are still currently looking for a good newsletter solution. So if you already have an existing solution that you are comfortable with, please feel free to proceed with that. And at the end of this session, I'll be sharing with you some best practices that you can use for your existing campaigns. All right? So moving forward, let's now head on over to my browser. Hopefully you can see that. Hang on, let's just wait for that to load. There. So this is basically Mailchimp's home. This is basically Mailchimp. It's the central dashboard that you'll see when you log in. As you can see already up here, you already have the campaigns, templates, lists, reports, and so on. So let's start off with how you can create a campaign or basically a newsletter. All right, so to do that, just head on over to campaign. Just hide this for a bit. From there, just click this one right here, create campaign. And if you've already done this in the past, you should see all of your previous campaigns listed already here. A quick tip, if you've already made a campaign before in Mailchimp, you can easily just replicate that, So you're basically just copying the template and just update that. It's a more efficient way of doing this. Most especially if you're planning on sending newsletters regularly, this is a very simple hack that can help you be more efficient, time efficient primarily. So, but for the sake of this, let's create an entirely new one, okay? So from here on, you'll see the different kinds of campaigns that Mailchimp can allow you to do. For this purpose, we will be doing a simple HTML-based campaign. But another thing I would like you to experiment on, which I'll be discussing later on as well, is the A/B testing. I'll be discussing more about that later, but for now, let's just proceed with the regular campaign. So once you click that, you should be able to go here. So Mailchimp is primarily going to ask you, who are you going to send this to? So if you have a mailing list already, you should just upload that to Mailchimp. Later, I'll teach you how. But for now, let's just click this internal testing one for that. Okay. We'll skip this bit because I'll be discussing that more in detail later. So from here on, again, so let's start fleshing out our campaign. So campaign name here, this is basically the counterpart to a file name. People won't see this. This is primarily for you. So let's just say test one. Now email subject, this is primarily a very important part of your campaign, as this dictates primarily if your contact will open. This highly influences if a contact will open your email or not. So be sure to kind of like look into how to draft a good email subject. All right. So for now, again, let's just say test one. Your from name can be I'd suggest your organization name, so TechSoup Asia Pacific. The from email address should be a verified email address. You can't just make something up. So you can use your generic or group emails for this. Take for example info@ contact@. These are very good for that, so you wouldn't be flooded if people respond. So those are basically the basics of this part right here. Now let us move to choosing a template. As you proceed to choose a template, as you can see here, Mailchimp already has a pre-made library of presets. So I would suggest for a more reflexive template, I would suggest either the one column or the one column, or this one, the 1-2 column. So for here, the one we're using actually is the 1-2 column banded. So let's use this one. Hopefully you're following along. Oh, by the way, just let's go back a bit right here. Sorry about that. Hang on, so let's just stop this for now. Let's go back. Apologies on that. Just quite delayed. Alright, so going back to the template. So as you can see here, these are the presets. If you've already made some before, you can just go to campaign. So you can see here all of the templates that you've used based on the campaign you've used before. So you basically can replicate one that you've already sent before. You can see all of the previous TechSoup newsletters right here. So I can just basically select one and refurbish one if I want. You can code your own here. I personally don't know how, well, I have limited skills in coding, so I'd suggest if you don't have as well, if you're coming from the same place as myself, I'd suggest that you use, let's start with these pre-made basics for now. So let's go back, half column banded, and here we go. So as you can see here, at one side, we have all of the functions that we can put on our newsletter. And on the other side, we have our newsletter. At the left, this is what our newsletter would look like. At the right, these are the functions that we can basically add to it. So as I mentioned earlier, this is pretty much drag and drop. So for the sake of this, let's just remove everything first. So I could teach you how to do things from scratch. So from here, it says drop block content blocks here. So if you're familiar with InDesign, it's basically a simplified version of InDesign. So let's say that we want our logo to appear on top. So let's just so we want an image, right? So click the image there, this image function there, and just drag it right there. There you go. Now, let's upload an image. So a cool thing from Mailchimp is that it saves all of the pictures that you upload to it in your built-in library. So from there, you can just basically search it. So TechSoup. A logo should appear. There you go. So let's use this one. There. From here as well, it's a little big to be honest, but you can basically edit that from here as well. Mailchimp has a built-in image editor, so if you need to make small edits, this is perfect for that. Okay. Now, a quick tip, when you're dealing with images on a newsletter, I would suggest for you to not forget this little thing right here. As you can see, this ALT right here, that stands for alternative text. So what is that for? It's primarily for two purposes. Number one, alternative text is basically, it gives your picture a title. So number one, in a case where there is low internet bandwidth, so if there is a bad internet connection, instead of loading the picture itself, what Mailchimp would do is it would replace that picture with an alternative text. So here, let's put, say, TechSoup logo. So the reason for that is, in a case that, again, if there's bad internet, people would know that that square right there, that's supposed to be where the TechSoup logo should be. Now, at the other hand, for a more functional, another more functional reason for doing that is if you have subscribers that have visual impairments, say they may be using a screen reader, this allows screen readers to actually basically to identify that this section right here, it's supposed to be an image. And the image, and basically through your alternative text, people with visual impairments can get an idea on what that image should be. So in this case, since it says TechSoup logo, if I have a reader that's using a screen reader, he would know, or he or she would know, that that section right there is supposed to be the TechSoup logo. Okay, now let's move forward. Now say here, I need to do some text. Again, just click the text right here, drag it to the body, and you can basically edit from there. There's a text block, so from here you can do a lot of things. So let's just say, hi, this is a test newsletter. Pretty easy, right? Standard text features, so you can bold, italize, underline, you can hyperlink a URL, you can even put in a files there if you want. A quick tip as well, if you are coming from, if you made a draft before on Word, you should use this. There's a paste from Word here, so let's say this one. So paste from rich text editor. So the reason why I want you to use this is I recently learned that if you're directly pasting text from Word to something like Mailchimp, there's an extra bit of code there that can affect your spam ranking. So that's one thing I've learned. I'm not sure about the technicalities of it, but just make sure to course it through paste it from rich text editor first, so that Mailchimp would be able to remove that extra line of code. So you wouldn't be marked, well, you wouldn't most probably be marked as spam. So it affects your overall spamminess primarily. So make sure you use that. And that's about it. So merge tags, these are basically, if you're familiar with mail merge and how it personalizes your letter. Take for example, if you have a list of subscribers and they all have of course they all have their own names, and if you want to personalize it, you can use merge tags to reflect those certain fields. Take for example, which country they're coming from, what their name is. So that's one thing you can use. All right. So basically, this is pretty much your standard Word editor, and you can pretty much do the basics of adding text, and so on from here. So same with image. If you want to add an image, just drag it here and upload it again. I hope that's pretty much very easy. Some other functions that you can do, you can directly put a button there. You can also directly upload a video or link it from your YouTube channel. And most especially, if maybe you're working with something that has an HTML code, you can upload that code right here. Just drag this box right here, and you can directly post your HTML there. But then again, the reason why we're using this is to avoid that. So just in case you need it. So, okay. Now, that's basically the basics of how you create a newsletter. Now, here are a few important tips that you can use as well. Number one, if you want to see how it looks first, you can use this preview and test. It's not going to look good so far here because this is pretty much blank. So let's go and open one that's already pre-made. So let's create another campaign. Let's just copy one from the existing one so you would see what I would mean. Give me a moment here. Internal testing, setup. Hope you're still following though. It's pretty much very easy. Okay, so let's get the template. So from here, let's use something that we've already done before, say our November newsletter. So if you use that, you would basically be able to copy the entire content there as it shows here. So this is basically the entire November newsletter. You can reuse your old newsletters and just refurbish it, update the content. That saves you a lot of time, most especially if you're going to be doing this regularly. This saves you a lot of time as it helps you skip drafting from scratch. And basically it's just a fill-in process now. So again, one thing I was about to talk to you about is this preview and test. An amazing thing about Mailchimp is that it recognizes the idea that your newsletter can be opened in a variety of ways, and you can do that here. So preview and test, let's go to preview mode. In preview mode, you're given with three basic options on how you can preview it. This one is if you're looking at it from your desktop. So this is how it would look like. Now say somebody opens it through a smartphone. This is what it would look like. You can see how reflexive it is. In a click of a button, and basically Mailchimp automatically detects that it's being opened from a mobile. So it reformats it into a single column. And that's also the reason why I usually opt for you to use single column templates so that it's easier, or it's a little more reflexive. As you can see there, very mobile friendly. And lastly, if you're opening this from an inbox, say from Outlook, this is what it's gonna look like. And okay, so it's not allowing me to do that right now. But the important thing is that you know what it looks like from a mobile and from a desktop. Pretty cool, right? Now let's press escape. If you're not convinced yet, one other thing that you can do is you can send a test email. I usually do this. So I send a test email to 2 emails just to make sure it's okay. Now I open both. Take for example, once I receive it, I open it through a series of devices. So I have my desktop here. I try to open it from a desktop just to make sure the formatting is okay. I open it through my mobile phone as well and through my iPad just to make sure that it's properly formatted across all 3 devices. Now you can easily do that if you have your email synced to your devices. That's pretty much it. And lastly, once you're done, say you're already done, so you can now confirm that. So here you just need to go over the basics of what you've done, make sure your subject line is correct, make sure the reply email is correct as well, and just go down here. Now from here I can just easily send that, or if I want to schedule it, I can do that as well. Now Mailchimp is primarily free for the first 2,000 subscribers, but if you're using a paid account, I'm currently using a paid account, an added feature is that because of its insight system as well, tracking system, it can now let you know when is the best time to send, basically. So today it's pretty much late, so let's just to show you how it works. Let's see when's the best time to send on a Wednesday. It's taken a bit of a while. Okay. Anytime now, Mailchimp. Well, anyway, so basically what's going to appear there is a time that Mailchimp would suggest you to schedule your campaign to be sent out on, and that's based on historical data, basically on your history of sending out newsletters. I would suggest if you're going to use this, if you're running on a paid account in the future, best do this the day before, because if you're, like take for example today and it's Wednesday and it's already 11:30 a.m., what's going to happen is that Mailchimp is going to find you times that are later in the day. So it doesn't essentially mean that it's the perfect time for the day. So for you to be able to find the best time, do this a day before, just to make sure. All right, so we're going to skip that for a bit. It's taking a bit of time. Let's go back home. Now, another thing I promised to teach you is basically identifying this, initial steps on doing tracking. All right, so let's go to reports here. An important thing to take note of is the open rates and click rates. So here, let's start with this. Let's select our newsletter from November, our first one. As you can see here, we've sent this out to 5,644 recipients. It was sent out at 8 a.m. On a Wednesday, and this is my subject line. And this is my open rate, 17.6% of 5,000 recipients. Same time, I have a 2.1 click rate. Now that is pretty low. Say for example, why? How did I say that? Why did I say that's pretty low? So because we have standard benchmarks here. So my list average is usually 18.3%. So that means that perhaps my subject wasn't pretty catchy, or I may have sent in on a bad time. Those are two factors that you can check into. And most especially, it's pretty low because compared to the industry average, for most nonprofits, in general, we get a 21.5% open. That's pretty much the benchmark for a nonprofit newsletter. So again, this is pretty low. So again, two factors that you might want to look into is your subject line and your time. Those are the two factors that can directly affect your open rate. Now for click rate, this is primarily, again, this is anchored, of course, to your open rate, but also this is anchored to the amount to your content and to your layout. Okay, let's show you that now. So you can see here, if you click that number, that percentage, you can see here which are the top links that have been opened. This gives you an idea on which among your content is most interesting for your readers. So an easier way to do that is through the click map. So it's going to show you pretty much your newsletter template, but with these hovering stats here. So as you can see right here, my main article, of course, is the most clicked with 43.8%. And as you go down, it doesn't the placement doesn't necessarily affect it, but based from my experience, what does affect click rate is your layout. So basically, if you don't have a good layout, it's going to affect the entire readability and, of course, would affect your entire click-through success as well. I'll be showing you a good example in a bit. But again, this is the standard way of doing reports. I would suggest for you to compile these maybe on an Excel sheet. If you're running on Power BI, as far as I know, this could link directly to your Power BI. Power BI, of course, is a business analytic tool available for free for those of you that are qualified for Microsoft. But again, a standard thing that I would suggest for you to do is create reports every few newsletters just to make sure and basically to get an overview of what content is working. So maybe from my newsletters from January to July, say community stories usually garner the most clicks. So in that sense, we need to then dedicate more time on finding new community stories and developing new stories similar to that. A good insight, a good experience I've had from here is that based from newsletter campaign reports, I've learned that a lot more people are interested in Microsoft Office. That said, then we then dedicated a lot more time on developing content for Microsoft Office and discussing Microsoft Office with customers or NGOs such as you. So these are important things that you will learn from this. So again, I would suggest for you to download these reports. These are downloadable, by the way, and track it. This is these are all important information that you should keep note of, okay? So that's the basic of reports for now. Now let's go on to the next part, which is lists. So in Mailchimp, you are able to manage your lists centrally through this portal. to give you a bit of an overview, Mailchimp is free for the first 2,000 subscribers. Now, that's a pretty high number already. But going beyond that, you will be paying on a per-tiered system. Mailchimp has a cost estimation function that can help you identify how much you're going to pay for if you're going above 2,000. But for this time right here, let's just focus on some list functions. So as you can see here, I have 5,679 subscribers, and they're all crammed into one list. That's TechSoup Asia mailing list. Why is that? The reason why I need to cram all of those in one list, one quick tip for Mailchimp, if you create another list but you have similar subscribers, say for example, if I create a subset of the TechSoup Asia mailing list but just with, say, Singapore contacts, what's going to happen is that Mailchimp wouldn't be able to detect duplicates because they're on two separate mailing lists. So what happens then is I'm being billed a lot more because I have duplicates, because Mailchimp is not able to, again, detect duplicates if they're coming from two different mailing lists. So again, this is a one way of, cost cutting or being cost effective. So, okay, to create a mailing list, it's very easy. Sorry. You can just create a list here. So standard, you need the list name. Again, this wouldn't be seen. Your default from email address should be, you should enter something that's an actual email address, your from name, and some basic ideas about, basic information about the organization. So I'm just going to go back right here. That's just a quick overview. But the cool thing about Mailchimp is that you can add subscribers by simply importing them. Here, right here, you can just import a CSV file, or you can copy and paste from a you can copy and paste from an Excel file. So I suggest using a CSV instead. Pretty easy. Another cool thing as well is that you can create sign-up forms. So if you have, so this is something that you can add to your website. Cool thing here is that if you have some basic idea on how to do HTML, you can grab and even design a code here, HTML, and you can just paste the code on your website, and that will appear as a sign-up form. We're currently using that now in TechSoup. And that's about it. So going back, so say, Judd, I want to create subsets of a larger mailing list. That usually happens. And as you can see here, there are certain fields as well that are required. Not necessarily required, but are asked for. Say I want to create a country subset. So maybe I want to just send out across my contacts coming from Singapore or maybe from Indonesia. One thing you can do with Mailchimp is, under Manage Subscribers, you can create segments. Segments are basically groups based on a particular criteria, and Mailchimp automatically updates this with new contacts as you continue to upload new contacts. So as you can see here, I have certain segments. I have segments based on country. So what happens there is that every time I upload a new contact with the country field being Vietnam or being Philippines, they will automatically be copied to that segment as well. Now the good thing about segments is that it's still part of the larger mailing list, so Mailchimp would identify duplicates. So you're not being billed for duplicates. So that's pretty much a good tip for you to use moving forward. And another cool thing about Mailchimp is that if you use the CSV upload method of uploading new contacts, Mailchimp will identify basically which would bounce a lot. So if historically, if you've already been sending to that email and has bounced a lot, Mailchimp would automatically say that, hey, I'm going to remove this because they've bounced a lot and you're going to be, spamming them anyway. So they're going to automatically remove that. It automatically removes duplicates as well. So there are a lot of pretty cool functions with the upload CSV file in terms of contacts. Again, it's a smarter way of managing your contacts. So far that was the very quick demo. Again, it was particularly very easy, right? So now going back to the newsletter, to the slide right here. So we pretty much went through all of these three things. Now let's go on to some quick best practices. Now if you don't want to use Mailchimp, that's pretty much okay with us. but these best practices might be effective for you as well. So in terms of creating your content body, a few tips that you can take into consideration. Number one, as I've mentioned earlier, the simpler the layout, the better, because it becomes more reflexive and it's easier for it to adapt to a smaller screen. Secondly, be mindful of the amount and size of text. Going over some previous newsletters I have received before, we have kind of this inkling to cram a lot of text into it. I'm not pretty much a big fan of that because it's a bit dragging to look at, and also it's uninviting to read on a marketing perspective. So what I'm trying to draw out here is that if Mailchimp was, take for example, if your newsletter was a movie, if your website was a movie, your newsletter should primarily be the trailer. You shouldn't give away too much. Give enough information to make it enticing, and just add a link. That's easier. I promise you that will be better in terms of click-throughs, because people would be able to initially identify, oh, this looks like a good article, so click through. Okay, next up, be mindful of picture, file, and dimension sizes. Here is another thing that's usually forgotten. So in newsletters, I'd prefer that you focus more on imagery, as that's more enticing rather than text. So for pictures, be mindful of, number one, the dimension sizes. Make sure it's properly formatted. And secondly, picture the file size itself. Keep it as low as possible. If you're using Photoshop, there is a save for web function. If you're using Canva, you can download it as a JPEG for a lower resolution. Again, this makes it easier for mobile devices to load or open your newsletter, and most especially if there's bad internet connection, it's easier as well for your contact to be able to open that. Okay. One thing I forgot to mention was about the size of the text. Again, if people are opening your newsletter from a mobile device, it's going to be particularly hard to read if it's smaller. So make sure it's a bit larger. I usually use about size 24, font size 24. And last but not the least, if you're working with uh, multiple countries, take for example us, we're working with about 10 countries. One thing that could affect your overall click-through is the language in itself. So not a lot of people may be using, so take for example for us, we use English, but maybe a lot of countries prefer that in their local language. What you can do to learn what you can do to determine that is you can do the A/B testing. A/B testing is a function in Mailchimp where you can create two different newsletter versions with a slight tweak. Take for example, one maybe in English, another one maybe in Bahasa. So what's going to happen is that Mailchimp's going to send these two versions to a small subset of your larger mailing list. Now the more successful ones with the more opens, Mailchimp will then say, take for example, your Bahasa one had more click-throughs and more opens, so Mailchimp's going to say, hey, this is more successful. So for the larger group, Mailchimp will automatically send the more successful one, the Bahasa one in that case. So breezing through here, and again, like I mentioned also earlier, use the paste from functions if you have a draft of your text content, maybe on Word. Again, that removes extra line of coding that can affect your overall spam ranking. Now, going over here, you can see I'm going to basically demonstrate here how important it is to have a simpler template. As you can see on the left, that was our older version of our newsletter. A bit more complicated. Text is a lot smaller, right? And as you can see at the right, it's our more recent newsletter template with bigger text, simpler template. So what happened here before is that our earlier version of our newsletter would usually record about 12% open rates, very dismal reports, mainly because, again, it's not as readable and it's hard to open over mobile. It has a big effect. And we've doubled that number. So basically, we improved twice. So we had a 100% increase when we changed to a simpler layout, most especially in the click-throughs. So we had significant success on that because of as influenced by the change in layout. Again, because it's easier now for people to actually read it and easier for it to be digested. Okay, Moving forward, writing your subject line. Again, subject line is one of the most important parts of your newsletter. It primarily influences if your newsletter will be opened or not. This doesn't just affect your newsletter, it also affects your overall emails, regardless if it's a marketing one or a casual one. Number one, keep subject lines as concise as possible. If you notice, sometimes our subject lines get cut off. Take for example, your entire line becomes cropped and becomes replaced by a couple of dots. Now that's because it goes beyond basically the capacity for for text. I would suggest between about 30 to 35. I've read researches that you should keep your subject lines within about 50 characters or less. My hotspot is between 30 to 35, just for you to be able to be more adaptable for mobile devices, because again, mobile devices have smaller screens, so can basically show less text as well. Next, keep your subject lines fresh. This is basically a tip I got from some researches in Mailchimp, posted up in Mailchimp. Again, if one problem that we have with newsletters is that, of course, we don't have consistent content, new content coming in. So if we're about to refurbish or reuse content, just, again, play around with your subject lines. Don't repeat them as much as possible. Keep it as fresh as possible so that it seems like we're creating new content, but not necessarily, right? Next, again, like with A/B testing as well, you should consider subject lines in local languages just in case your readers would prefer that. Okay. Now, lastly, with sending newsletters, be mindful of the time and day of sending. One thing that's usually underrated about any email is the time and day that we are sending. So this is primarily anchored with how most of us spend our day. Just like with social media, we should take into account when we should send it. My sweet spot is around Wednesday at 8 a.m. For some reason, our reports show that that's the time with the highest opens. So I would suggest you use the reports to be able to determine which is your sweet spot. So this will vary from organization to organization. But some generic things that I could share: avoid Fridays and Mondays. Mondays because these are very manic days, and Fridays because people are usually more relaxed now and would normally be unattentive to emails. So those are two generic things. You could try out Wednesday to begin with, Wednesday mornings preferably. Next, make sure you have updated your mailing list, of course, to maximize your overall reach. And yeah, that's about it. General reminders: be consistent with your campaign. Make sure that this doesn't happen on an occasional level. Set a tight schedule. Take for example, uh, every month I should send this, or every 2 months I should send this. The reason is, again, we need the newsletters. The newsletters' primary function is to keep a constant line of communication open with our networks. So we should be able to send. So that's why we should keep a tight schedule in sending these campaigns to keep that communication line open. Next, you should always have a clear call to action, and this will reflect as well in the amount of text that's on your newsletter. That's why I usually opt for less text, more concise text, so that people would be able to expect already, would know what to expect already by reading this. And lastly, experiment with different content and other ways of sharing. So sometimes newsletters aren't successful on their own. There are a variety of ways to expand that. You can sync your Mailchimp with your social media. So there's an automatic sharing function in Twitter or Facebook once you send it out. So there are a lot of, take for example, in our case, we do that. We share a link to our newsletter just to boost up success as well. So again, there are a lot of ways of sharing this, and just don't be limited to just a newsletter. And lastly, Mailchimp is free to an extent, but if you're, it's basically free for the first 2,000 subscribers. But if you are looking to go over that, you can apply for a nonprofit discount. Good thing, you don't have to have a TechSoup qualification to do that. You can do that directly with Mailchimp. I'll be sharing you a link to that. All that it requires, I think, is just to sign up a form, an online form at that. So that's basically about it. Time for questions now. I know we're a bit what time it is, so we still have about 10 minutes, but for those of you who are willing to go overtime, I am as well willing. So yes, so just feel free to send in your questions. Okay, going over this. Okay, so Fred, just note that Mailchimp is free up to 2,000 subscribers. After that, a paid account is required. For so Fred, I'm not sure if this is a question, but yes, so it is free to an extent. Not necessarily required. What you can do, in our case before, uh, what we did was we removed subscribers. Sorry to say that, but one thing that you will learn from the insights is that not everyone is attentive to your newsletters. Not so there's such a thing as contact ranking. So they're ranked by stars in terms of attentiveness. 5 stars, they love your newsletter, they open it every time. 1 star, they basically don't open it at all. What we did before was number one, we weeded out spammers that can happen. And another thing is that we weeded out unattentive subscribers, primarily because at that time we couldn't afford paying for it. So that's one way of cost cutting. But yes, if you would want to proceed, Fred is right, you should consider doing a paid account. But again, you could apply as well for a nonprofit discount. I think that's equivalent to about 15% off. So that's very substantial. To give you an overview of the price, we have about close to 6,000 subscribers and we're only paying about $56, $59. That's not too bad, to be honest. And we're going to get 15% off from that as well. So it's a pretty good rate, to be honest. Okay, a question from Sherman. What about a case where your organization has a membership system? Is there a way to create segments of existing members based on membership expiry date? This is pretty good. They will not receive emails anymore. Ah, so so basically Sherman's question is that can you put an expiration date on your subscribers? Say for example, after this date, they will no longer be able to receive emails. Now that's pretty good. What I don't think you can automate that right now. I'm not sure. There might be some extra line of coding necessary for that. But you can take the manual approach. That's going to take a while, but that's one thing you can experiment on. One other thing you can do is that you can create segments in terms of, uh, you can basically create a subgroup every now and then. So take, for example, uh, every time you upload new contacts, you also consider whom will no longer be considered in this. So basically, you're automatically removing these contacts in this new subgroup. I hope that made sense. So basically, you can experiment with the segmentation. I'm not sure if you can automate that, but you might want to take a more manual approach. Try to research in Mailchimp though. To be honest, I haven't fully utilized all of the functions of Mailchimp, but I think that could be doable with some extra line of coding. Yeah. So moving on, I hope that answered your question though, Sharman. Quick question here again from Alexi. I've seen some input names of recipients and their subject lines and their content of the newsletter. Okay, so Alexi is asking if you can personalize a subject line. Currently, that you can't do that on Mailchimp, unfortunately. That would take a lot of uh, manual work, to be honest. I wouldn't suggest that. You can do personalization in the content body itself, but currently in Mailchimp you can't personalize the subject line, sadly. So we would need to think about some general workarounds for that. Okay. Quick question from Cheng Wei Li. Should the Mailchimp account be started under the organization? Is there such a thing? Or can we start it under a personal account? So, Cheng, this is a good question. You can start it with just your personal account. Again, this is the free subscription of Mailchimp isn't necessarily limited to organizations. So you can just pretty much use your personal account. I've been doing this for a test because we have a different, again, I'm handling primarily the marketing for NGOs, but at the same time we have some marketing, internal marketing as well among groups of funders. So that's a separate Mailchimp account. I've done that through my professional email from my global account. But yeah, what I'm trying to say here that is that you're not limited to, that's not limited to just organizations. Yes, you can use just your personal one for that. Okay, and here's a good question from Oren. I'm concerned that some of my emails are ending up in spam folders. Is there a way to avoid this? Now, this is a pretty good question in the sense that there's a lot of factors that can affect this. Number one, look into your subject lines. Subject lines are the primary cause, usually, of being caught in a spam folder. Number so there's such a thing as spam hot words. So the overuse of free, use of capitalization. Uh, Another thing is typographical errors. So there are a lot of factors that can actually affect that. And another thing that I've mentioned earlier is the function paste from word or paste from rich text. That's also something that you might want to look into. But yeah, those are two things that I would want you to experiment first, Oren. But then again, there are a lot of factors that can affect this. And another thing that can affect this is that your subscribers are actively marking you as spam. So that's another possibility that you may want to look into. Okay? Rafi, can you explain the way if we would like to post our newsletter in Facebook? Okay, so there are two ways of doing that, Rafi. I'm going to show that to you right now. Hopefully you can see my... So what I do is that, say for example here, you can actually copy the the link to it. So if you want to share your uh, newsletter to your Facebook account, there is a way to automate that. You can just sync your Facebook account to your Mailchimp. Another thing is by doing this. As you can see here, there's always a function that says view this in your email browser. You should be able to see that when you do the test email or when you do the view in the preview mode. If you click that here, you can then get this link. Then you can put it maybe in a URL shortener to make it look sassier, less spammy. So yeah, that's one way of doing that. And you can paste that directly to your Facebook. But then again, yes, there's also an automated way of doing that. Just sync your Facebook account to it. Let's do that. Hang on, right here. With our test, show you real quick. You can do that at setup. Hang on, spamming. Social media here, you can auto tweet it, auto post to Facebook after sending. Now, where do you sync that? You sync that at your profile right here. Oh, sorry, account. You should be able to see this right here. Here, integrations. So it's not just Facebook that you can integrate it. You can also integrate Mailchimp with, say, Eventbrite, which is a very good function. So here, you just need to sign that up right there. Hopefully that helped. Hopefully that helped, Rafi. Okay, a quick question from Sarah. What are the main limitations between the free version and the paid one? Oh, this is a pretty good question. Number one is the amount of subscribers. A paid version can, of course, accommodate more subscribers, but then that is priced per tier. So take, for example, every succeeding 200, I think your price goes up. Another thing is automation. Well, not necessarily automation. Oh, yeah, automation in the sense of Mailchimp helping you to identify which is the best time to send out on a certain day. So that's one thing that's not available on a free version. Those are two important things that are missing. Okay, Asher, does it have optional subscriptions? Say you have to send specific campaign to more than 2 KDOs, but you usually have just, oh, they actually do. So Asher's question is that maybe you just need to send to maybe 3,000 subscribers one time, but more often than not, you just have about 1,000 subscribers. So that is actually possible. Hang on. You can do that at billing. Sorry. Oh, hang on. I've just seen that earlier. Here, if you view your billing plan, here is a pay-as-you-go. Designed for infrequent sending. So basically, you can just buy credits to, to accommodate your extra subscribers for that. Okay, hopefully that helped, Asherle. So, oops, hang on, sorry, just lost, got lost in my own questions panel. Okay, Kok Hong Po. I have a few design-related questions. Can the layout of important templates be edited or modified inside Mailchimp? If you import and resize an image inside Mailchimp, does Mailchimp recompress the image, or does it have the exact? These are very good questions, Kok. Okay, so can the layout of imported templates be edited or modified inside Mailchimp? As far as I know, no. So you have to basically go back at the code again and redesign it elsewhere, then re-upload it. I'm not sure now though, but as far as I have understood it before, that's a no, because I have done HTML based before. I've tried to code my own before, and when we had to do some edits, we had to do the coding elsewhere and re-upload it. Now, as for the resizing, I believe not particularly sure about this, to be honest. It's worth checking because I usually don't do my resizing in Mailchimp. I usually do this over at Photoshop so I can understand basically what's my expectation for a file size. You can control this at Photoshop. Again, I would suggest you do these elsewhere. But it's worth a try though. Sorry, I don't have a clear answer there. Uh, but yeah, my basic suggestion is do it elsewhere just to be safe. Okay, sure. Any other service provider similar like Mailchimp? There is one I've heard from before. I haven't tried anything else. One thing I did see before that's almost similar is Wix. Wix is primarily a web designing tool, but it also does provide a tool to help you create your own newsletters because newsletters and websites go hand in hand anyway. But I believe it provides the free version of Wix is far less uh, far less effective because number one, it can only provide you free for up to I think 1,000 subscribers. It's not very well compared to the 2,000 of Mailchimp, but Wix is one thing that you can try as well. Okay, Fred, just another question from Fred. Just to add to the information on an account, you can set up several users under one account with various levels of functions. Yes, this is a very good idea. Thank you for reminding this, Fred. So one useful information from Fred Goddard is that you can actually manage your MailChimp account as a team. And just like managing your, say, your Facebook account, you can put in degrees of access. So some are just editors. Some can actually serve as an admin that can control everything. Some can just, basically comment. Some can create their own. So you can do that at the account. Is it the account? Sorry. Oh, whoops, no. Let's go to profile. You should be able to do that here, but currently I'm the only admin right now. But yes, you would be able to do that. I can't remember where we do that. I'm gonna definitely add that to the post-webinar email. Sorry, I forgot how to do that. Oh, here, users, sorry. Sorry, so you can add in new users here. And you can basically edit their access. Say you can be an owner, admin, so there you go. So that's a pretty good suggestion. Sorry, it's a pretty good idea, Fred. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, Alexi, another question. So about how can I reduce file size using Photoshop? That's a pretty good question. Now, when you're saving, so for those of you that have Photoshop, this is particularly useful not only for newsletters but for your general websites in general. Sorry, for your websites in general. you should always keep file sizes of pictures low, so that's going to be easier to load. To do that, there's a function there that save for web. Sorry, I think it's under export, if I'm correct. It should be under the same tab as file. If you could check export, as far as I know, it's under it's under export, save for web. Linda, yes, we have recorded this. I will be uploading this to our YouTube channel today or tomorrow, but I will be sharing the links within 24 to 48 hours, I promise. Okay, Mahmoud, is there any free account for local NGOs who or unable to pay to subscribe? Yes, there is a free Mailchimp account. Actually, the first account that you are going to be creating is a free one already. It is free up to 2,000 subscribers though. So you need to manage your subscribers to currently fall within 2,000. Otherwise, there's no workaround to this but to remove some subscribers to keep it free. All right? Okay, another cool insight from Fred as well. I think this is going to help with the earlier question. Yes, MailChimp does resize in two ways. You can have an image resized in the newsletter, but the original image does not change, so does not change the file kilobyte size. So that basically answers the question. Thanks, Fred. Thank you. You can also change the file size in the image editor, which is better as it will make the file size smaller too. So for for the question earlier about whether Mailchimp automatically changes the size, Fred is basically saying yes. Thank you, Fred. You've been very helpful. Uh, will Mailchimp automatically delete email addresses of those bounced email? Yes, but only if you clean your. So I think there's a function there. You need to clean your mailing list again. uh, Sorry, how does this work again? This usually happens to me when I'm uploading a new contact list, but for the existing ones, you may need to keep a strict eye over that. Just every now and then, maybe every month or so before you send out, just take a look again of those who bounced. Yep. So again, take a manual approach for now. I will double check if this is automated though. This is automated in the sense that when I upload new subscribers and Mailchimp has seen that it has already been there before, it will remove it if it has bounced a little too much. But I'm not sure if this works without in a context where you didn't nudge it to do so. Hope that helped, Texan. So far that was the last question. Any last any follow-up questions? We're a little above time, but I'm more than willing to stay here if you have more questions. Give you a few minutes. Okay, so is it possible to add? Yes, so one question here from Colleen is it possible to add or integrate a CSV file to an existing list? Yes. So what's going to happen is that if you kind of like upload a new list to an existing list, Mailchimp is just basically going to clean that to make sure that no account is duplicated and that there are no spammy emails. So yep, that is very much doable. You can do that at Manage Subscribers. You can import a list to an existing list. Okay, guys. Other questions? So, okay, I think that was the last one. So hopefully this was helpful. I am sorry for the questions that I wasn't able to answer directly. I will research on that, I promise. Thank you, Fred, as well, for helping out. To be honest, that was really good saves there. Thank you. So yep, I hope this was helpful to kind of like jumpstart you on your story sharing on your newsletter campaigns. Your stories are very much appreciated, and at a time as depressing as now with everything, uh, please be inspired to share your stories. A lot of people would want to hear more good in the world, and I think you are in the best position to do that. So if there are no more questions, I think that's about it. And thank you again. I'll be sharing the recording to this in a day or two, so keep out for that. For those of you who have questions, feel free to email me. I would be more than happy to help. Yep. So thank you guys and have a nice day ahead of you.